As even nationally watching what happened during COVID with the burning, that was going on downtown, I guess I was just really surprised, looking at it that was allowed. How were people in Minnesota responding to that, and how have these businesses been rebuilding since then?
Well, I can tell you, I remember where I was. I mean, it's a little bit almost like 9/11 or the JFK assassination.
Yeah.
For those of us who live here, I mean, it was just such a deeply personal and impactful moment to turn on the TV and see your cities burning
Hmm.
and nobody
Yes.
doing anything. And I remember I was up at the cabin at the time, my in-laws' cabin, and my father-in-law was reacting to it in real time along with me. And he is not a political guy, a retired foreman in a contract plumbing operation, just a normal average guy who likes to hunt and fish and kind of despises politics, actually. And his reaction, I think, was probably pretty typical. I mean, that's kind of my bellwether is normal guy. How does
Yeah.
he
Yep.
react? And his reaction was just absolute disgust. How is this being allowed to happen? Why is nothing being done? What are we paying our taxes for if we're not going to restore order in a moment like this? And we saw Tim Walz's reaction, which was all but saying that these people have earned the right to express themselves through any means necessary, and we'll wait until they calm down and come up and clean up the mess later. Well, it didn't work out quite that way.
Well, specifically, there's a million points of contact there, but when you withdraw forces from a police station and let it burn, that's for me. That's I don't know if there's a more stark example between the rule of law still maintaining itself versus almost like a fallen state.
Tim Walz had a choice. In that time of chaos, in that time of riotous thugs burning Minneapolis, he could have chosen to use his power, his authority, to bring order, to protect innocent lives. Instead, because he's an extremist, he sat on the sidelines, allowed the third precinct to burn, allowed for businesses to burn, and in entire blocks of businesses to be crushed. At the time, I was in the House and I was on the Public Safety Committee. I took a tour in the weeks in the aftermath. One of the stories, we toured several businesses of the broken windows, the shattered lives, and one in particular. This was a strongly immigrant community where many of these riots took place, and one of the Hmong owners that we toured, he spent many years, several decades, I think, building his business. It was a clothing business, and we toured it. And these riotous thugs broke in. They ransacked everything that he had, his entire life, and he had tears because he didn't trust government from the country he came from. And he
Mm.
stored all of
Wow.
his life savings. He stored the
Yeah.
title to his house, to his vehicle, in a local safe, in a safe in his business in the basement. And these thugs came in and they destroyed that safe and they took everything he had. He was in tears and he couldn't speak English. We're listening to him in this tour through a translator. And that is one example of the thousands of lives that were destroyed as a direct result of Tim Walz failed leadership and allowing thugs to overrun Minneapolis.
I think that's
That's
really
heartbreaking.
important for people that maybe forgot about what happened in Minnesota as we watched it. But I think if you're looking into somebody that's going to be, put into, a vice president position, possibly, we need to be aware of what the history is and the decisions that he's made and how it's affected the state of Minnesota.